Hi, fifth graders. Happy Friday. Welcome to your optional fun Friday video. What I wanted to share with you today, actually, what I want to start with is a little story. So, something true that happened to me just the other day. So, I always start my days out with taking a walk. It's good for my mind, it helps clear my head. I get to kind of start the day fresh and start the day outside, which I obviously love. And of course, I get to take Mac with me, and he loves it too. And so, we're outside and we head out into our prairie to go for a little walk. And so we're walking along in the prairie, and all of a sudden, you kind of get that feeling like someone is watching you. And I'm like, so I look around, and there, just over a little hill, is a little coyote. And I can just see his little ears popping up, and he's staring right at me. And I'm like, and good thing Mac doesn't see him yet, because Mac would totally chase right after him. So I quickly call Mac. I'm like, Mac, let's go back this way, and we walk back into the house and leave the coyote alone. I kind of peek over my shoulder, and he's darting off in the other direction. So he was obviously pretty scared of us, but this made me want to kind of address coyotes with you, and just talk a little bit about coyotes, because there's a lot of misconceptions about coyotes. And so I just kind of want to dive in here and just tell you a little bit about them. So I'm going to switch over to my display. There we are. All right. So coyotes are actually Minnesota's most abundant, typically large predator. So a lot of times, though, when kids think of coyotes, they think of big, big, big like wolves. But coyotes are actually kind of small. They kind of look like a small, skinny German Shepherd. They look very much like them, but they're only about 25 to 30 pounds. And so to put that in perspective, my golden retriever weighs 80 pounds. I mean, he's kind of big, but so he is actually much larger than those coyotes. Um, and so when we encountered it in the prairie, we still always want to leave nature and nature. And so that's why I called Mac over in the other direction, because I'm sure the coyote would have been fine. He would have gotten away, but my dog definitely would have chased him because he's much bigger than him. Um, they have a really distinctive yipping sound. And this is something that I hear a lot in the evenings, especially like right as the sun is setting. This is usually when the coyotes are doing a lot of their hunting and capturing of animals. And so they'll yip in order to communicate. So they can kind of yip and they can kind of howl, but it's a pretty distinctive coyote sound. So if you hear it, you're probably think it's a wolf, but around here and where we live, it's most likely a coyote. Coyotes, they have pups that are born in April. And so that's right now. So hopefully, pups are being born in their dens. When they're first born, they can't see. Their eyes are closed, but within a couple weeks, they're out of the den and they're out exploring. And then by the fall, they're actually finding their own little territories. So we hear a lot of coyotes here on my prairie because they eat mice and they eat small rodents. And last week we talked about or 2 weeks ago, last week we talked about gophers. And and so they are plentiful on the prairie there. So they really do a nice job getting rid of some of the gophers. So that's kind of helpful, actually. But they have been known to eat porcupines even. They flip them over and they can get at them at the underside of their belly where there are no needles. And they occasionally have been known to eat livestock. So if there are livestock, meaning like farm animals in a enclosed area, coyotes can actually eat them. So this was actually a huge problem back in earlier days, and so they actually allowed people to do coyote hunting, and it is still allowed today because there are so many coyotes. So there are hunting regulations, of course, with that as well. But I've also included on this slide a little picture of a coyote. So as you can see, he is small and quite dog-like, kind of like that German Shepherd with a big fuzzy tail, though, very cone-shaped. And then you can see their paw prints, the front foot and the hind foot, they're slightly different, but they look kind of very similar to my dog's footprints. And when they are walking, you can see kind of the alternating steps there. Um, they can have a very large roaming area, so up to 36 square miles. Normally, they only move about 2 to 3 miles per day, and they kind of stay in the same territorial region. So usually there's one male and a couple females within their territory, but they usually like to kind of protect their own little space. They are found all over the state, and so there is even a nickname for those that live in the city called urban coyotes, and so they find things to eat within there like mice. So they are definitely all over. In that top picture, you can see that is a coyote just roaming around in a neighborhood, right? There's cars in the background. You might have even seen one and have your own coyote story for yourself. They do prefer a combination of kind of a farming and forest habitat. So there's a little protection in the forest, but then there's also nice open spaces where they can kind of chase things down in the farming areas. But obviously, they do well on prairies or in those dense forest areas. So what I want to play for you now is actually a YouTube clip from someone who saw coyotes with their like little night vision, and they're actually kind of howling in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and make this large for you and play a little bit of it here. You can hear a siren in the background, and so that's probably what's triggering them to start howling here. All right, and that's enough of that. Just even during that short amount of time, my dog's sitting on my bed behind me, and he is perking his ears up. He's like, "What's going on?" So they definitely like to try and communicate with each other. The next thing I kind of want to talk about was on the different side of things. As I was walking back, we walked past, I have a little stand of aspen trees. And so I wanted to kind of talk about how cool aspen trees are. So these are trees that are native to cold regions with cool summers. And yes, that is us, even though there are some days when we get quite warm. But they are also found in Utah, Colorado. So kind of those colder, cooler climates. They are often called quaking aspens because the leaves, they tremble in the wind. And so if you go outside and you find an aspen stand and it's really quiet but kind of windy, they kind of tremble, and it's just a wonderful sound. Um, One neat thing about these aspen trees, though, is that the root systems are all connected. So this comes like huge stands of trees can all come from one seed. So underground, those root systems are connected. This means that they are essentially identical twins. They are all from that same single seed. Individual trees can live for 50 to 150 years, but in these aspen systems, they can live for thousands of years, including Pando. So Pando is actually one of the largest uh, living organisms on our planet, one of the largest biotic things on our planet. And it is located in Utah, and it's 80,000 years old. So parts of the forest may die off to forest fires or things like that, but then it is able to regenerate from that same single seed. And so they have this nice white distinctive bark, not to be confused with a birch tree. This one is much smoother. It doesn't really peel like a birch tree. They do also become a beautiful yellow in the fall. Their leaves are very round, but they do have these like little ridges or little teeth, kind of combs on the outsides here. So you might have an aspen tree in your yard. They're really fun and just beautiful. So this is a picture of my aspen stand on the left here with the sun setting in the background. Obviously, it is early spring, and so we don't have any leaves on there yet. So here's kind of where it ends, and then we have a little bit of a space here, and then I do have like a row of deciduous trees, coniferous trees, conifers, that always keep their leaves year round. And so again, this is just kind of on my walk back with the sunset in the background. Now, one thing before I wanted to kind of sign off for today is just to make sure that you are finding space and peace and quiet in the outdoors. So I do live on a prairie system. So this picture on the right with the sun, that's actually sunrise this time, is near a little pond in my backyard. It's almost like a marsh. I wouldn't even call it a pond, but kind of a little swamp area where water does collect. And normally I kind of ignore it because it's kind of a gross area. But just this one morning, I was like, you know what? We'll go in, we'll explore, and we'll sniff around. And I just got this beautiful moment on camera, and it was just so nice and peaceful, and just to sit in the quiet and to just listen with no distraction, no music, no TV, and just to be in nature. And I think that's really important for us to be able to listen to the sounds of spring because spring is emerging. So as you can see in the picture on the left, we are starting to see more green. We're starting to see these big leaf buds almost breaking. So spring is on its way. And so just making sure to enjoy Minnesota in all four of its seasons and not just during those summer months. And so I did just want to sign off and say thank you for listening as always on Fridays. This is optional, so I appreciate your time. Um, there is this really neat scientist who has studied the sounds that our ecosystems are making. And so what he's done is he's recorded sounds from all over the world and all these different types of ecosystems. And what he's done is he's recorded over the past 30 years. And so he started to compare these sounds over time. And back 30 years ago, it was much louder. There were all different types of birds that you could hear, different types of noises. But now we're starting to hear a lot of human sounds, a lot of human noises, a lot of, trucks in the background or, the freeway on the other side of things, or even construction sounds. So just making sure that we embrace being in nature, embrace hearing those sounds and not our human sounds, and making sure to listen to what Mother Nature has to tell us. So thank you again for today. I will see you next week. Bye.